the feedback we got from the community was wanting for their students, for their children to have these readiness skills and being prepared for the life that comes after the K-12 experience. And, that certainly led down the path of this really needs to be something that starts much, much earlier than ninth grade. Helping students to identify purpose early. How do we sustain a greater amount of that sense of purpose for more years?
Hello and welcome everybody to the Future is Clear, Teach Like It's 2045 webcast series. I appreciate you joining us here today, and I really thank the four of you fellas to joining me this afternoon to connect to those listeners and have an impact, I'm hoping here, with this work that we're doing, the great work that you guys are doing related to the career, community, and life readiness in our state. Appreciate you taking the time. I want to talk real quick. How did we get here? So, especially with the four of you, you know that we've been doing a lot of work around this career, community, life readiness. We decided, because it's exploded in our state so much, we thought we'd like to put together a year-long conference series, I guess we'd call it. So we thought, what could that look like? First thing we wanted to do is pull together a webcast series. So here we are. It was our goal to bring to you some of the greatest innovators, thought leaders from inside and outside of our state to help kind of share their knowledge and their expertise in this field of career, community, and life readiness. So today we pulled together what I'm going to call the dream team, probably because we've been working together, right, fellas? But they are definitely doing some great work in the field around career readiness. I really appreciate you guys taking some time and freeing up your afternoon and joining us together. Let me tell you a little bit about each. So we've got Drew Halbesma. Drew is currently the superintendent from Delavan-Darien School District, which is in the southeast part of Wisconsin. He's in his 14th year in education. Drew has been a director of teaching and learning, principal and also associate principal in 2 different school districts. He's taught 5th and 8th grade in the Burlington area school district. Drew's married, father of 2, and feels the system needs to be revisioned, reimagined, so that our students are ready for a world that has not yet been invented. That's bold, Drew. I really like it, though. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Yeah, you bet. Also, we got Brian Henning. Brian is currently the superintendent from Waterloo School District. He's been in education for 27 years, 10 of that being at Waterloo. As an educator, Brian has been a teacher, a principal, an athletic director. He prides himself on being a strong advocate for students. Brian is married and a father of 3 and believes in the power of public education and that this generation of leaders must rediscover our purpose in education by changing the relevance of how we meet the needs of our students. Another bold statement. Really appreciate it, Brian. Also, we've got Keith Johnson. Keith is currently the principal of Nekoosa High School, which is a small rural school in central Wisconsin. Keith has been an educator for over 20 years, starting as a social studies teacher at the middle and high school levels. He also has been an elementary and an associate principal in the Nekoosa School District. He's also married, father of 3, and believes that education plays a crucial role in students being prepared for life after K-12, the K-12 experience. Great to have you with us today, Keith. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, you bet. And finally, we got Mike Rick. Mike is currently the Delavan-Darien Tech Administrator, along with being their CTE ACP coordinator at Delavan-Darien School District. This is Mike's 9th year in education, so he's the youngest here, just so everybody knows, right? He started as a technology education teacher at the high school level. Mike is married, is a father of 2, and feels that has never been a better or more important time to transform the K-12 educational experience from checking the box to a purposeful career, community, and life readiness approach. Appreciate you being here, Mike.
Thank you.
We've done a lot of work together, Mike and I, so I know how he thinks. It's great to have you guys here. You are the first of many of the Future is Clear Teach Like It's 2045 webcast series. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Scott.
So let's talk a little bit here. How has the year started out for you guys so far? We've teed it up, right? Balls in the air. Time to get going. What's it look?
For us in Delavan-Darien. So this is my first year at Delavan-Darien. So I started July 1st. So this is day 59, I believe. It's going great though. We had an awesome first week of teacher professional development. Finished up our week last week with Dr. Luis Cruz coming in and talking to our staff. So that was amazing. So we're ready to roll. We got a lot of positive vibes going, and we're ready to get kids back here next week.
Yeah, we've done some things together over the last couple of weeks, Drew. So yeah, you've done a great job getting started. How about the rest of you? How's it going?
Well, thanks for having me again, Scott. In Waterloo here, we certainly track the ebbs and flows of the school year quite closely. And this is one of those times of year where energy is high. We've obviously been working to prepare for students to be back. Teachers are back. We've got open house tonight in Waterloo. So excitement is very high. And we're definitely excited about the start of a school year, but also excited about this work that we're going to be taking on as well.
Yeah, you guys also have done some great things. Excited to hear about it too. Keith, what you guys got going up in the middle part of the state?
It's pretty similar. We've had in-service going on this week, and we have open house going on tonight right now, getting started with that. And yeah, the energy level is high and people are ready to get started. If you could bottle this energy up right now and bring it around in like February, that would be fantastic.
Right. Isn't that true? Mike, hey, Mike, you and I have been conversing all summer. So, you know, you enter into this a little differently than the other three. You're kind of boots on the ground. What's it looking like for us?
Yeah, no, I say kind of building off what Drew said, pretty pumped with the start of the school year, focusing on district-wide now on our CCLR, our PLC process, and also our portrait of a graduate, what we want kids to walk away with. And I say Drew couldn't have done a better job kicking that off district-wide. We started small, and now we're starting to take it to the next level, which is pretty positive outlook going into the future.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm really excited to hear more. Again, as we've all worked together around this work, it's going to be exciting to share some of this stuff out. Just so everybody knows, you know, this is being recorded and we're going to share this out. So those that are joining us, you know, live today, please share it out when you do get to recording. We're going to keep this. We're going to keep it on our website, the recordings, but we're also going to share it out through our newsletter. So if you're a part of our newsletter, you're going to be able to see all these recordings. So it's going to be kind of cool. Anybody that's live with us, if you have any questions at all for our guests or myself, please enter that, throw that into the chat, and we'll definitely try to get to it. But all right, so let's get into the deep part of our conversation, right? Let's start this way. I think this might be the best way to approach this. Tell me a little bit about your journey. You know, how did you get where you're at? But more importantly, how did you get to the point of, hey, we want to revision, we want to reimagine, we want to move towards that career, community, life readiness approach. So give me a little bit of background.
Yeah, I can start out. So kind of my shift from the traditional educational system to kind of, you know, questioning why are we doing what we're doing in the same way we've been doing it forever. Right. Probably started in about 2016 when I became the principal and teaching and learning coordinator at the Wheatland Joint One School District in Kenosha County. It's a small K-8 district. Yeah. When I started there, we had about 495 kids, K-8. And we really started in a path of more like personalized learning, right? So we were talking about personalized learning, and our staff just caught fire. I mean, it went like gangbusters. Engagement of kids skyrocketed. Test scores kind of took care of themselves because of the engagement was so high. Everybody was bought in. We had it going. I mean, we still to this day, Wheatland, if you don't know Wheatland's area school district, Mr. Marty McGinley is the superintendent there. Their open enrollment's about a third in now. So they have about 33% of the population. They're up to about 620 kids now. We started at 495 when I was there. So they're going like gangbusters still. So it kind of started there, was that fire. And then when last couple of years, I've been the superintendent of Genoa City. And, as I got into my, trying to feel out the culture and kind of feel out what that system looked like, after year one, I was like, okay, the superintendent book says I should have a district leadership team, right? So that's what I was supposed to do. So I was like, okay, I have a district leadership team with teachers and everything, so more voice and everything. But I had no idea what we were going to do, right? So I was like, I was like, okay, we'll get all these people in the room, and then what are we going to talk about, right? And so it's probably going to go down more of a traditional route. And actually had a conversation with Scott that summer prior, and it kind of clicked where like all my thinking, the stuff I was like really wanting to do, I really wasn't, bottling it up in a way or messaging it in a way that, I wanted to. So that was really what started me kind of on that readiness journey. And then why I'm here really is because of the relationship I'm, meeting up with Mike and through Scott's work. I met with, on a whim, just the readiness team in Delavan-Darien. That was last October, I believe. And it was just because I wanted to learn from their readiness teams, the mistakes or the things that we could do better at Genoa City. So we met, and I came away from that meeting like, holy cow, these people are doing awesome things, right? So, and when the superintendent position opened up, I applied. I wasn't looking, but I applied because I wanted to be a part of that, right?
Yeah.
And that's really why I'm here. I'm impressed with, we are truly a sleeping giant here in Delavan-Darien.
Yeah.
And I feel like we can do things differently, and just this is the right work to do. So that's why I'm here. That was kind of my journey towards this in a nutshell. But it's really, really exciting.
Yeah, I'd agree, man. I think they got the right man for the job, to be quite honest. I think you're going to do some great things down there, Drew. Brian, how about yourself?
I think for me, having worked in a few different school districts and now Waterloo, I think if I'm being totally honest, I think I've known for quite a while that we really needed to kind of do something different. It's only been within the last couple of years that, we really had the courage to jump into the deep end and go after this work. It really kind of centered around a discussion we had with our administrative team a couple of years ago, because we recognized, we were really good at preparing kids for post-secondary school, and we had the AP honors and the AP honor roll and the recognition for all of those things as a district. But then when we looked at what our kids were doing after graduation, we really only had 50 to 60% of our kids going to one of those institutions. And we all just sort of looked at each other and said, what did we do for those other kids? And it really got us thinking about, how do we prepare kids? Are we preparing every kid that comes through our building? And what is society wanting? And what is the community telling us? And where is education going? Because we found ourselves on a track that maybe wasn't reflective of the things we were hearing and seeing around us. And so, we've decided to jump into the deep end and start to pivot to where we're going as a district.
Yeah, agreed. You say that very well, and I love the work that we've been doing together too. I love how you think and your willingness to kind of, really take those risks. So yeah, that's great. How about you, Keith? What do you got going?
Yeah, I think for me, it kind of starts even, really in some ways right at the beginning of my career when we were on the dawn of the 21st century, and we were all talking about 21st century skills, and Tony Wagner and these different people that were talking about what students need into the future. And then when the academic and career planning came in and we were starting that work, really, I had an excitement around what that could look like. And as a building, we did some good work around ACP, but it like so many places, it kind of became a little bit of a box checking, activity completion sort of process that I think the it became clear we needed to do something different, that we really, our students are becoming, less and less engaged. We need to look at what do students need for success into the future. What do we want? What do we want a graduate to look like? And starting with that portrait of a graduate work. And so that was really kind of the starting point, was really diving into what do we want our graduates to look like? What are the skills, the attributes that we want students to come away from us with? And and getting started on that and reimagining what work-based learning looks like, reimagining ACP, and really from there it kind of rolls into reimagining the whole system. And that's the work we're continuing on with.
Yeah, and doing some great things too. I've always admired, Keith, your thinking. We share a brain, I think. Maybe we're related or something, but it's like we could answer each other's or complete each other's sentences sometimes with the way you think around some of this work. But Mike, how about yourself?
Yeah, I mean, Skies, like this work it's in my blood. I mean, it's as a CT teacher and starting out my career, this was kind of everything that I focused on, being a CTE teacher, connecting kids to the outside world, helping develop those employability or durable skills. It was something that, really hit home with me, especially when Scott and I met up a few years back, when he was talking about portrait of a graduate. And I was like, oh my gosh, this makes so much sense. And we need to bring this into our district. And at that time, we had just started DD Tech, which is our charter school, CTE related charter school. And we were trying to encompass a lot of these career community life readiness pieces within that charter school. And now with Drew coming on board, we are looking at taking it more district wide. Because as we've gone through in the past or looked at in the past, kids are really starting to, I guess, challenge the system in a good way, asking the why in classes. And they want purpose coming out of their classrooms. They want purpose when they come to school every day.
Right.
So I really appreciate actually that kids come in and, they ask, why am I learning this? Show me how it connects. And I think this work is really going to help ground us in helping deliver that why to kids, or helping kids find that why.
Yeah, I agree. Because we know that, right? Students want agency.
Yeah.
And really the way the world's moving right now, and technology, it provides the opportunity for our students, even at a very young age, to want that agency, want to have a say, want to be a part of their learning process. And there's been such a level of disconnect in our educational process to, our students being able to see relevance in it, which, right, as you say it very, very well, Mike, that then what happens? They can't find purpose, right? And then that leads into them, not hitting their priorities. But
right.
I'll say this about Mike Rick: everybody needs one in their school district. Right. I mean, I think that's Drew. I think you chose to take that job because there's a Mike Rick in your school district there.
Seriously, that it was a piece of the decision, because you got to have the right leaders in your camp and have that same vision that you have in order to move forward. Right. So we do have a very, very strong leadership team that is carrying on this work, and Mike is a big part of that. So
yeah, it's great. I know what when I get in front of schools or into schools in front of administration teams, one of the things I kind of joke about is you need to hire an innovation specialist. And that's kind of like what your role is over there, Mike. So hats off to you. Keep doing a great job. Well, I appreciate that out of all of you guys. Let's shift gears a little bit and move into, what is this, right? What does it look like? I will say this. I want to kind of tee this up a little bit. As this has exploded in our state, people reach out, what is this? Your schools are the schools, you three schools are the schools that I pretty much talk a lot about. And I'll get into conversations and a lot of the leadership groups, administration teams, they'll chalk it up a little bit that, well, this is like personalized learning, or, this is another thing in school that ties into the personalization of students, right? Or this is ACP, and we do a ton of that. We're doing a great job of that, right? And as we move into the deeper conversations, we find out that truly, if you ask that question, does every kid in every classroom know their purpose? But as you move forward, what is this? What does it look like? What is the what? What do you think that is? Anybody?
So for us, I mean, we're really starting with the basics. It's getting to know yourselves, right? And that includes our teachers getting to know themselves and be able to be transparent with their kids on what they're about, how they teach, how they learn. And it's about our kids knowing their skills and attributes and kind of those durability skills that Mike referenced that they're really, really good at or they need to work on, right? And if you're more self-aware of that, then you're going to be able to connect the dots a little bit quicker, a little bit easier. And I'm talking knowing each other down to 4K, right? So
Yeah.
that's our vision here, is that this is a K-12 adventure that we're going on here, and really starts at that early level. If a 5-6-year-old can know what they like to do, not what they want to do as a career. That's kind of, I think, the misnomer on this work, that we're going to pick a career in kindergarten. That's not the case. It's just, what are you good at and what do you like to do? And then as we go through school, we can kind of expose them to, well, there's this and there's this avenue here, and did you know that this was a thing? And then as we go through and a little bit older, we start to add in some experiences, right? We get to add in some visits to community places. We can bring in speakers from different places via Zoom. We can just all those different things as we build our knowledge of where we want to go in life and what we're good at and what we want to do. And it just kind of filters all the way through from a K-12 system. So that's kind of what we're gunning for. We're not there yet at all. But that's the vision. That's what we want out of our kids, so that they're career, community, and life ready, when they leave us. So.
Yeah, I like how you talk about getting to know yourself, right? And at that deepest level, those attributes, tell me a little bit about, maybe Mike, you might be able to answer this. So I know you'll be able to, but tell me, where do you see that level of importance of where a kid can recognize their attributes and see a connection to that real world, real life application? Talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think of you mentioned the ACP process too, and you build off Drew and what you just said, Scott. But the ACP process, for so long has been put into, homeroom or advisory. And just to expand, it should be the piece with CCLR is to put it into each and every classroom, just like Drew says, so kids get to know themselves. So when they understand who they are and their attributes, when we do a career connected learning, experience, they know exactly, where that aligns with them. And it helps them select different avenues, and helps the teacher when the teacher understands who the kids are, and what their core values are, and what their strengths are. When they're selecting people to come into their classroom, or they're doing career connected learning projects within their classrooms, they can do it in a way that's purposeful within their individual classrooms and with kids. So yeah.
Yeah, that's great. As you both talked, right? This goes down to the kindergarten level, pre-K even. Brian, we've been doing some work in your school all the way down to that level. How do you see that looking in your elementary grades, for students to really be able to connect who they are to a career, community, life readiness approach? How do you see that looking? What is it you maybe need to do even?
Yeah, I think it's important to acknowledge that, we live in a world where there's a lot of different ways for people to connect and get to know each other, webcast or social media or any of the ways that we connect on a human level nowadays. But I think we all can admit that maybe we are a little more disconnected than we have been throughout history. And I think we're committed in Waterloo. And we get these questions from our staff all the time. How does this look? Just tell me what I should be doing, and give me the blueprint or give me the outline. And we, as an admin team, have really had to exercise some reserve and patience in saying, it's going to look how you want it to look in your
Nice.
classroom. And so we've given the leeway for people to let that look how they want it to look in their classrooms. And it's going to look different across the district. As you said, we did jump in K through 12. We're all in one building, so people get to see what each other are doing. But just going back to what Drew said, it's really about getting to know kids. It's about them getting to know themselves. We think it's going to help with behavior. We think it's going to help with motivation and engagement, relevance, getting to know learning styles, all of those things that, we maybe struggled with before. We think we have a way to sort of improve on those things.
Yeah. I like how you say all in, and it can be painful. It takes me back to just a few weeks ago when you and I were meeting and you wanted to go a little bit too fast, I felt. And I'm like, we need to slow down a little bit. Otherwise, that's going to really disrupt, the opportunity for this really to land, and be embraced to create that cognitive investment that leads to that emotional investment. So I think you're doing a great job, Brian. Keith, one of the things you and I have talked about, right? Last time we chatted a little bit about this work was, closer to the end of the school year. And at that point you talked about, we want to move towards that, that full K through 12, look. What took you guys to that level?
Well, in part for us, so we engaged in community conversations,
Yep.
and really the feedback we got from the community was wanting for their students, for their children to have these readiness skills. It really came through. They maybe didn't refer to it exactly that way, but certainly being prepared for the life that comes after the K-12 experience. And that certainly led down the path of this really needs to be something that starts much, much earlier than ninth grade. So many careers. We live in a town that has a large amount of manufacturing, and you have parents and grandparents who have worked in the various industries in the area, and children will close off to careers, really good careers, at a very young age. And so a part of the reason and the need for being pre-K 12 is to open up possibilities for students before they shut them down, so that they're at least open to the idea of, oh, that might not be the experience that my grandfather or my uncle or my great uncle had. There may be a different world that's possible in a paper mill, or in a factory setting, or in whatever industry you want to name. It looks different. And so that's a part of the need for K-12, and also I think plain simple engagement. I mean, just helping students to identify purpose early and help to keep that driving forward, so that students don't, we can draw a pretty easy line. If you look at the Gallup student poll and different things like that, fifth grade engagement is relatively high, and then you go all the way down, and then you blip up again at senior year. Well, why do you have that little blip up at senior year? Because students have a sense of purpose. Well, how do we sustain a greater amount of that sense of purpose for more years? And so that's a part of it.
Yeah, I know that's great stuff. It's funny. I was on a podcast a while back, and I was asked the question, because we were talking about purpose, and I was asked the question, when did you find your purpose? I was like, God, I think I just hit it now, and here I am at the end stages of my career. So, but yeah, I mean, at the root, right? We need to allow our students to find their purpose. And
I was going to say, Scott, I think an important part though here is to also help, other educators, community members, ourselves realize it's not as though we're asking students to carve into stone their purpose. And each one of us, your purpose may change, as you move through life. You may discover a different purpose and reorient. So it's not as though I think
Right.
sometimes this work gets locked into, well, what do you mean you want to lock a 5-year-old into their career? Like
Yeah.
Drew said,
Yeah.
no, we're not looking at this as setting up, here's the career you're going to go into. We're not even saying this is your purpose for life. Let's just help you to identify a purpose for the work you're doing today.
Right.
And
Right.
that's what.
Yeah, can I build off that too?
Yeah.
Just looking at too, student purpose and what that drives them being engaged in classes. Now think about, teacher and student burnout rates, and classroom management and all that, and just how it impacts the whole system just by, changing some of that work that we're doing in each and every classroom.
Yeah. Yeah, it's well said. I mean, yeah, I agree. I agree with you that, as I think back to my own career, I in and out of different, my purpose was pretty consistent, but I was in and out of different opportunities, which is kind of what we want to provide for our students, right? Some experiences, opportunities, so they can kind of find that purpose as we move forward. So if we're saying, at the root of this is for us to be able to create a system that allows students to identify and find their purpose. What would be, give me maybe 2 or 3 priorities or steps that you would offer another leader on how do you move towards that in every single classroom all the way down to the kindergarten level?
Yeah, I mean,
look like?
Yeah, we're still figuring it out, but for me, my philosophy is it can't be top down. It can't be the new superintendents coming into town. They're going to tell you how to do this. And some people are wanting that, right? Some people are like, okay, just tell me what to do, so then I can check the box and we can move on because I've seen this before, and that's what we're really trying not to do. Is we've developed, Mike has developed a great readiness team at all levels, high school, middle school, and elementary, where we're really putting the work is on you guys. We're here as a resource. We're here to remove barriers, remove hurdles, but it's got to come from the teachers if we're going to be successful and it's going to sustain. Could we have small change if I went in and said, let's do this? Maybe, but it's going to be very short-lived and it's not going to be sustainable. So I really, am an advocate for, making sure that, we give the autonomy, freedom within fences, we say, to our teachers, and give them the green light. I mean, that green light culture that we talk about a lot is, go ahead, figure it out. If it's bad, don't do that again. Like, it's not that complicated. Like, nobody's going to die because a lesson went wrong or it went to left field here. Let's figure that. And that all is built on trust, right? So we have to have that mutual trust between that. I'm here to support you. This is not evaluative. This is simply because we think this is best for kids, and we want you to be energized by this as a staff member. And that's where it comes down to also that retaining and keeping your best people that are going to do the work, because this is hard. It's really, really, really hard work. And we got to have the best people to do that. And they got to feel good about that. So, I mean, I think that's a really, really key piece for us. I mean, in Delavan-Darien, kind of my mantra here at the start is do simple better. We want to do 3 simple things. Very, very, our fundamental purpose is CCLR. We want kids to be career, community, and life ready. There's a lot of stuff in that bucket, right? That's going to lead to our PLCs, which is how we communicate, how we collaborate. That's how we do business, right? So we have our fundamental purpose. We have our PLCs, or how we're going to get this done. And then the outcomes is our portrait of a graduate. So we're really trying to kind of systemize that. And that was a big part of what our last week was about as we kicked off the school year, was to align everybody in that, because everybody's been working really, really, really hard, but everybody's kind of been rowing in a different direction. We want everybody rowing in the same direction. And we're going to do some really, really great things with this work. So, but it takes everybody to have that common vision, common understanding, and that why is that. I mean, for Mike, 2 years, right? That the high school, and we're still figuring it out. So this is not not a 2-month process. This is for me, it's a 3 to 5 year journey that we're going to be on. And, this is just the start. So,
Yeah. So
Yeah,
some of the,
okay.
it's interesting. Some of the work that I've been, supporting in your districts, Delavan, Mike and I have kind of been, at least we've been doing it the longest. Brian, talk a little bit about how you became aware of what that structure needs to look like, right? The different teams that we've pulled together, because, Brian, in some of our work together, there's been a little bit of confusion or questioning and not sure, even at the administration level. Give us how that unfolded for you, and then some suggestions on how do you allow it to have some patience and continue.
Yeah. Just like Drew said, we're also still figuring it out, and we're on a 3 to 5 year plan. We really latched onto the culture piece. We're really spending a lot of time building that culture, right? It's onboarding new staff. It's having those discussions with veteran staff. It's changing the way it looks and feels when you come into a building, whether you're a community member or whether you're a student. Things they might see in hallways or in classrooms, even how you group students for homerooms or flex times or those kinds of things, just really changing the culture of the building. But also, like Drew said, I think it's really about giving people permission, to do those things in your classes and encouraging them to take risks and not be afraid to make mistakes. We certainly have just really focused on that culture here early on, and let some of the technicalities of the process sort of work itself out as it goes.
Yeah. Let's shift gears a little bit, because I we're still in that, what does it look like and what is it? And we've all talked, and we're seeing this come through our state of Wisconsin, right? That one of the ACP components and emphasis this year is career connected, learning. Where now, obviously, we don't have that really strongly happening in a lot of classrooms right now in your schools. But what does career community life connected learning look like in a classroom? And how do you see giving that green light to your staff and being able to get to that? What do you think? Mike, I know that you're sitting there going, man, if we could get there tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
Let's do it. But
Yeah, I mean,
what are you seeing?
Yeah, no. So I'd say, career connected learning, I'd say, like, I can speak for here at Delavan. We can bring in a lot of people from the outside world to come in, talk to our classes and things like that. But again, it goes back to, how are the kids connecting to it? Not just bringing in, especially at the secondary level, how do you bring in someone who matches your clientele within your class? It's not just bring them in just to bring them in. How do you have those connections to your kids? I really think when you walk into like a career connected learning classroom, you should be able to feel it, right? It's not so much of like, you'll see different things going on and hopefully that engagement, but you should be able to, you can walk into a career connected learning classroom and really,
Right.
You feel that atmosphere that kids are finding purpose in their classes and engaging in the activities.
Well, tell me, say a little more. What do you think are the, some of the main components of career community life, career connected learning? What do you see as the main components in relationship? If you were to help coach up a teacher, what would that look like?
Yeah, I mean, I would say it'd be, a lot more, student voice and choice in the classrooms. Maybe grouping kids off into, different, pods of similar, skills or similar career interests, and helping. I would help the classroom teacher, I guess, see that and understand how their class dynamic breaks out into those groups, and then how can they structure their content or their lessons around those student groups, or give those student groups content that relates to them, and how can they reflect them back to the entire class about how it connected.
Yeah, good stuff. Good stuff.
I think
Hey,
too.
Mike, we like to use the word embedded here. So you're embedding it in everything that you do.
Yep.
Yeah, definitely important.
And I think too, like at some point, we're not there yet, but it's someday. I think it's Kevin Fleming that talks about, someday our footprint within school will hopefully someday get smaller because we're taking, these things outside of the classroom, right? It's
Right.
not all just happening within a classroom and structured like it's traditionally happened.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing, but it's kind of it's using and practicing multiple durability skills, right? Within that project or that or whatever you have going on in your classroom, that activity that you have in your classroom, multidisciplinary. So like you won't be able to tell the difference, hopefully someday between what's a science class and a math class, because it's just it all goes together, right? When you're solving a problem, we don't think about, am I doing math right now, or am I doing solving or critical thinking right now, or am I communicating right? You do it naturally because you have those skills, and also grade levels too. Some like what readiness isn't about your age. Readiness is about, are you ready? Are you there cognitively and maturity wise and things like that. So kind of thinking outside the box and those areas too, I think is what the future of a career ready classroom kind of looks like.
Yeah, and if I build on that too, talking with teachers about, selecting standards, they're all very, accustomed to picking their standards. And when you're picking your content standards, how do you connect that to or how do you pick your essential standards of what you're going to target? But how do those essential standards connect to career community life readiness? How can you incorporate the durable skills into what you want kids to learn each day? It's keeping that at the forefront, understanding you have to cover content, but how do you connect that content to things like durable skills and life outside the classroom?
Right.
I
Well,
think a part of it too,
go ahead.
Scott, if I can jump in, a part of it too, I think is breaking down the classroom walls and getting the students out into the community. And, and that can sometimes be a really difficult logistical piece to figure out. Oh my goodness, if we're taking all of these students out into the community, well, who's covering the chaperones classes, or who,
Right.
what are we going to do with these students who missed the content in their other classes? But working past that and helping everyone to adjust to the idea that you're not losing a day if students are out on a job site. If students in a geometry and construction class are at a work site, they're gaining more in learning, but they're also gaining more in purpose and engagement when they come back in a new renewed energy level. And so I think that's an important piece of this, is breaking down the classroom walls and getting students more into the community, as well as bringing the community into the schools.
Right. Yeah, that's well said, Keith. I was having a conversation with a couple teacher friends, and we were talking about just our language literacy even, and how can you shift, the main components of language literacy to have a match, to a career or community relevance, right? When you start to talk about reading, writing, but also speaking, right? And even listening. And some of those are really key points, right? Which kind of shifts us into, let's talk real quick here. We can talk about what it is. And some of you have already talked a little bit about how you're trying to shift, right? How you're trying to shift mindsets. But boy, was that a hard conversation for me when I was talking literacy, when it came to reading and some of the traditional things we do in educational systems around reading and writing, right? So let's talk real quick here. What does it look like? How do you shift mindsets to move towards this type of an environment in a classroom and also in your schools? How are we going to do this?
So I say I can speak for how we're doing it here. Delavan and Drew touched on it a little bit, but it starts with me with your cognitive investments. Context around the why, and grounding. We're talking about it district wide a little bit, but we're more focusing in on our readiness teams, which are teacher-led teams. They're all teachers on those teams, and grounding them, and our strategic teams, which is administrators, counselors, coaches, grounding them in the why. Why are we moving forward with this work? And then too, as Drew touched on, moving towards that like emotional investment, more towards, trust and establishing that green light culture. And I say some of the things that we run into is the trust building. It takes a lot to trust in not having, a top down feel like a typical initiative. And how do you work around that, and establish this new culture that is very trusting and understanding that, teachers do, great things in their classroom each and every day that administrators aren't even aware of. And how do you establish that's okay, that's great things. And every time I walk into your classroom, it's not that I'm evaluating, how do you develop that culture? That's a big starting point for us, especially this year. And then having those readiness teams just pilot and try out these new things through this year at all grade levels. And then over time, as they become more confident in building this capacity around CCLR, how can they then bring in a neighbor and teach them, bring in another teacher and help them out?
Yeah.
And slowly over time, like Drew said, over 3 to 5 years, we'll eventually get to that point where this is just our culture and how we do business.
Yeah, the goal is that we don't have to have a readiness team.
Right.
Just what we do, right? So that we have to kind of start traditionally in this, because people would be all over the place if you didn't, but eventually we just want to get to the point where people are just organically doing this work, and it's part of the experiences that they're producing every single day, and they're able to share with one another and go observe one another without an administrator saying go do that. That's the ultimate.
Right.
Yeah, I think you have to, and we've tried to do this. We've tried to acknowledge that, we still have things that we have to pay attention to, right? The DPI has requirements for us. The state has requirements for us. We still have to pay attention to a lot of things that we always had to, but our focus has changed, right? We're heading in a different direction, even though we're still paying attention to some of those other things.
Yeah.
Well said, Brian.
Interesting, Keith. I remember some of our work, right? Tell us a little bit about how we started out as one full group, and there was some mind shifting that we had to kind of do as a group, and talk a little bit about your patience, because if some of the conversation you and I have had is if you and I could do this, we'd start this right away tomorrow. But talk a little bit about how you've had to be patient and how you've been able to move some mind shifts that way.
Well, I think an important part is to start out and remember where so many people in education, are in that the school system we have today, K-12 throughout our country, is a system that is largely built by people who did well in school and liked school.
Right.
And came back in to become educators within schools, saying, boy, I love this place so much. I want to spend my life here.
Right.
And so if you look at a system that worked really well for you, why would you change it? And, and so a part of when I was an elementary principal, one of the things that I would talk with the staff about was, we need to remember there are many people who walked out on graduation day. If they made it to graduation day, they walked out, they looked back at the schoolhouse and they said, it'll be a long time before I ever walk back into one of those buildings again.
Right.
And then as an elementary principal, I would say, and remember, 5 years, 10 years, maybe fewer than 5 years later, they're walking in as the parent of a kindergartner. It's naive of us to believe that they're going to suddenly show up at our door and say, there were some horrible, awful things that happened to me in that building. But boy, now I see the value of what you're doing. Let's partner together and get to work on educating my child. It doesn't mean they're not a well-meaning, loving, caring, committed parent.
Right.
It means that they had a different experience than most teachers had in the school system. And so I think the patience comes in remembering everybody had a different experience within the walls of the schoolhouse. And we need to be aware of that, and we need to be thoughtful about that as we move forward, because the structure we have in K-12 today, it worked well for many people. It also did not work at all for many people, and trying to bring, and then the other part of the equation as well is and the system we have today may not be the system we need for the future. I would argue it isn't the system we need for the future. And so we need to take all of those pieces and keep those in mind as we're working forward. And so I think sometimes it's just a matter of reflecting and backing yourself up and saying, well, hold on, Keith, this isn't the world made by Keith. So,
Right.
And then you work with where you're at, and you keep working the soil, and you see where shoots spring up, and you keep tilling and you keep fertilizing, and maybe do a little praying and hoping.
Right. We've all done that.
We're
Yeah.
never going to be done.
Right.
Like that. I mean, I've had this message to my staff since I became a principal. Like, if you think we're ever going to be done, then you need to go away for right now, because we're never going to be done. We'll maybe be done with a couple of tasks that we have, but as far as continuously improving and getting better, and we're never going to be done until you retire. Then you can be done, but until then, we're not done.
You move the ball forward. I mean, that's what you do. You move the ball forward. This work starts before Socrates. Why? It would be foolish of us to think that, boy, we're suddenly in 20 whatever going to nail it and be done. Like, boy, finished.
Right.
Put a bow on it.
And then you also got to have those people that, it's progress, not perfection. So even though we're not going to be perfect at what we do, we still got to go forward. We still got to try some things out and fail forward. Right. So I think that's a big piece of this work too, is it's going to be messy and it's going to be muddy at times. And sometimes you got to stop, reorganize, come back. That's a big piece of that work. And you got to be willing to be able to do that. It's not going to be perfect.
Yeah, I say Scott and I talking to different districts. We always say, the traditional education is kind of always knocking at the door. It's something you got to stick to. I say it's a slow process, and apprenticeship through observation is pretty much what Keith was talking about. And we go back to the way we've gone through the system, and how do you change that and keep being innovative and keep communicating that as a leader, whether you're on administrative team, leadership team, a teacher, how do you keep that innovative, practice at the forefront? Because we're going to, as we've talked about here, you have to make the shift for our future. And for our kids right now who are coming in our doors, it has to happen in order for them to have purpose and, come through our system with meaning and, have them move forward. So I'd encourage anybody listening, obviously, to continue on with the web series and to hear more from the guests that Scott's got coming on, because I know he's got some pretty amazing people coming up.
Yeah, I appreciate the plug, which helps us transition right on into that. So yeah, as everybody knows, communicated with, that we've got a pretty good group of guests on this webcast series. I wanted to ask real quick before we head out with our final question, but I wanted to ask, anybody stand out on that list of guests that we have to any of you?
Well, with the importance of students to get to know themselves, Barbara Bray was one that I'm excited to see that's going to be on the series as far as that goes. And then Kevin Fleming, actually, Scott, I really didn't see any of his stuff until some of the podcasts that you have shared, but he's got some really innovative ideas about what future classrooms look like and what future of education can look like. So pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, same here. I had Kevin Fleming, big fan of his, actually reading his book right now, Redefining the Goal. So I'd love to hear what he has to say. And I also really love to hear, I've watched some of his videos on panels, but David from Kajan Valley.
Yep, David Mirashiro. Yeah.
Love to hear how he did this, K-12. I know they started doing this about 10, 12 years ago. So I'd love to hear some of his examples on how they're making it come to fruition. And then I didn't know, I say it, one for in the future. I don't know if you're having like Tim Taylor, but I'd love to hear from America Succeeds and the durable skills and how that came to be.
Yep. I've reached out to Tim. I'm hoping that we can get him definitely on a webcast. That's some really good stuff. If you haven't looked at it, the America Succeeds Durable Skills, I definitely have to take a peek at that. But how about you, Keith or Brian? Anybody stand out?
Yeah, well, Kevin Fleming, definitely, but I think also just, I mean, you've got a fantastic series just around the work-based learning. I'm really impressed with the lineup, and yeah, I honestly, I'm looking forward to, all of that's why I asked when we jumped on, is it going to
Yeah.
be recorded? Because I really, I want to, listen in on most of the, if not all of the sessions that you've got planned. There's so much work in this realm and so many different facets to explore that I think just across the board that lineup is really remarkable.
Anything
Yeah,
to add, Brian?
I think that Nicole Spicer from the elementary school in Illinois interests me because there's plenty of people doing this work, and you certainly find lots of them at the middle and high school. Anytime there's an elementary expert, I always try to tune into those because it does get a little bit more intricate on how to make it work at that elementary level, and we're always looking for new ideas and new ways to figure that out at that level.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Well, I'm glad that we've been able to pull together that big list, and again, we're going to try to add more. We're gonna let this lead into a conference that we're looking at having in April, an unconference we're going to call it. Obviously, behind that is a more intimate, engaging process of pulling people together and kind of working together. It's going to be a 2.5 day conference where we're going to be able to have school districts bring in even their business partners, hopefully from their communities, to it. And I'm going to probably ask or expect maybe the four of you to be involved in this at some point, somehow. If we can showcase the work that we've done together at that conference, because I think you guys are doing some great, great work. I think that that's going to be a real positive for, for our state, for at least our region, right? And let people learn from each other. And I think that's really at the root of what we're going to try to do with it. So, and then maybe lead into something over the summer even. We don't want this to be kind of that one and done type look. We've had a lot of people compliment the fact that, this is something that is ongoing. It's August to August or even further past, August of 2025. So at the root of our goal is that networking, we learn better from doing and working together, and that's really what we want to do. But hey, final question, right? So our tag is, right, teach like it's 2045. What do you feel the educational system is going to look like down the road in the future? What's a classroom going to look like? Maybe it's not 2045, but maybe 2035. What does it look like in our future? I'd like to hear from each of you. What do you think?
Yeah, I talked a little bit about it. I just think it is it's working on projects. It's not that traditional sit and get. It's learning from each other and multidisciplinary and again, it doesn't have to be the same grades. We can learn so much. I mean, I'm going to give another plug to Wheatland. So Marty owes me something here.
Right.
They've had a paths program there for the last 8 years in a small K-8 district because they believed that was the right work with it. So they have 6th through 8th graders all in the same classroom all day long, working on projects. And starting and the kids are the ones that bring the projects to the teacher and say, hey, these are the standards this aligns to. This is how I'm going to show you evidence of learning. This is how I'm going to be assessed. This is what it looks like. So, I mean, if we can get to that sort of autonomy with our own kids within the classroom to drive and to know what standards they're covering, holy cow. I mean, that's pretty cool stuff, and they're excited to do it because it's their idea. It's their voice and choice. Right. So I really think the more of that we can give our kids, the more excitement we can have. And everything's going to improve from there. Like you said, I think it was Brian, your behaviors, your attendance, your scores are just going to skyrocket just because of all of those things. If you can just focus in on giving that autonomy to our people and giving them a why to what we do. So.
Yeah, I'll just keep it simple. I think it might look a lot different in many different schools, but I think it's going to be, student led, student centered, and it's going to be a whole lot more relevant to individuals.
Yeah, I think the classroom walls, I think classrooms are going to be far more fluid. And I think what we call class today is going to look far, far different. I think some students will be doing, there's going to be an element of hybrid, there's going to be an element of online, there's going to be project-based, there's going to be out in the community, there's going to be work-based learning, more credentialing, students walking away with industry recognized certifications, collaboration with technical colleges and universities. And I think all of the things that you see happening in pieces already are just going to continue to accelerate, driven in many ways by the students themselves. I mean, students are demanding a different kind of school already today. When you look at students that are, I think of my own personal experience, students that are making application for early graduation or accelerating through summer school or looking to do partial online, partial in the building, what does that look like? It's all just going to continue to move forward. And I think that teachers will look different in the sense that, certainly, I mean, we haven't talked at all about AI and the impact AI is going to have, but that certainly is coming and that's going to change things. The teacher who simply distributes content and hands out a test is really easy to replace with AI. The person who connects on a human level with another human, that's way harder to replace. And so I think those pieces are all going to be really much, much greater factors in the future of education.
Right. Wow. Good stuff. Good stuff.
Yeah,
Mike?
I agree with everything that these guys said. Pretty spot on. I think, we're going to see a bigger focus. I referenced the durable skills quite a bit. I think, I think we're going to see a much bigger focus on that and how kids are meeting those durable skills, because what we're seeing is, when kids leave us, technical skills can be taught, in the workplace. And I think a lot of that durable skills will be built in or embedded into each and every one of our classes. And I think as Keith said too, the walls of a classroom are going to totally change. And I think actually over time, our footprint will kind of change because we're doing more out of the school.
Yeah, good stuff. It's really great to hear. I love you guys' vision. Boy, fellas, you are not only climbing in the mountain, you're moving it. So appreciate the hard work you guys are doing. I really enjoy being a part of it when we work together. So I really thank you a lot. I appreciate you being on the first ever, right? The future is clear. Teach like it's 2045 webcast series. You guys rocked it. You're rock stars. You are the dream team. So let's keep it together. Keep forging ahead. Appreciate it, fellas. Thanks for taking the time. And remember, the future is clear.